The stars had never looked so beautiful to Deho as they did from the bridge of the human ship. He stood in his best diplomatic uniform, watching the alien space station grow larger through the main screen. After 300 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, today would give them their answer. The Galactic Council had sent their message to Earth 6 months ago. It was simple and direct. They wanted to meet humanity and decide if humans could join their great alliance of peaceful worlds. Deho had been chosen to represent all of Earth because he spoke 7 languages and had spent 20 years working to solve conflicts between nations. Captain Minsu walked up beside him. The captain was a tall man with serious eyes who had served in the Korean Space Force for 15 years. He looked worried as he watched the alien station. "Something feels wrong about this place," Minsu said quietly. "Look at how they built it. No weapons that I can see. No shields. No defenses at all." Deho nodded but kept his voice calm. "Maybe they do not need weapons because they have found true peace. That is what we hope to learn from them." Dr. Sojin joined them at the window. She was the team's expert on alien life and had spent months studying the few messages the Council had sent to Earth. Her job was to help humans understand how these new alien friends thought and acted. Their messages were very careful, she said. They asked about our history, our wars, how we solve problems. They seemed most interested in whether we fight each other or work together. The space station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It was made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. Ships from many different worlds were docked around it, but they all looked the same in one important way. None of them had any weapons. As their ship got closer, Deho could see other alien beings moving around inside the station through the clear crystal walls. They were all very different from each other, but they all moved in the same way. They stayed far apart from each other and their movements were quick and nervous, like animals that were always watching for danger. "Permission to dock granted," came a voice through their radio. The voice was translated by their computer, but something about it sounded strange. It was too calm, too careful, like someone trying very hard not to frighten a wild animal. Captain Minsu guided their ship to the docking bay. As they got ready to leave their ship and meet the aliens, Dr. Heejin ran up to them. She was the team's doctor and scientist who studied how different creatures lived and survived. "I just finished looking at all the data they sent us about their worlds," she said, breathing hard from running. "Something is very strange. Every single alien species in their council eats plants or filters water for food. Not one of them hunts other animals." Deho looked at her with interest. "What does that mean?" "On Earth we have both types of animals. Some eat plants and some hunt meat. But here, every intelligent species that made it to the stars only eats plants. That should be impossible. The numbers do not work out right." Captain Minsu was already thinking like a soldier. "Where are all the hunters then?" Before anyone could answer, their ship finished docking. Through the windows, they could see a group of aliens waiting to meet them. The creatures were unlike anything they had imagined. Some looked like walking trees made of crystal. Others were like floating jellyfish that glowed with soft light. One looked almost like a giant rabbit, but with 6 legs and fur that changed colors. "Welcome, beings from the world called Earth," said the crystal tree creature. Its voice came through speakers built into the walls. "I am Council Prime Veltar. We have waited long to meet your species." Deho stepped forward and bowed the way he had been taught. "Thank you for inviting us. We are honored to meet you and learn about your great alliance." The aliens' crystals changed color slightly. "Yes, our alliance has brought peace to thousands of worlds for over 3,000 years. No more war, no more fighting, no more fear. All species live in harmony." As they walked through the station, Deho noticed more strange things. The aliens they passed all kept their distance, not just from the humans, but from each other. Their eyes were always moving, watching everything around them. They acted like prey animals on Earth did when they thought predators might be nearby. Dr. Sojin was quietly taking notes on her computer pad. She had noticed the same things. These aliens had clearly evolved from animals that spent their time running from hunters, not being hunters themselves. They were led to a great hall where hundreds of different alien species were gathered. The room was enormous, with walls that reached so high they disappeared into darkness above. Each species stayed in its own area, with empty space between all the groups. Council Prime Veltar gestured to a platform in the center of the room. "Please tell us about your species." We must understand your nature before we can decide if you belong in our peaceful community. Deho walked to the center of the platform. He had prepared a speech about human achievements, their art, their science, their hopes for the future. But as he looked around at all those nervous alien faces, he began to wonder if he should tell them the whole truth about humanity. Humans were not like these aliens. Humans had evolved from hunters. They had sharp teeth for eating meat. They had eyes in the front of their heads for tracking prey. Their ancestors had spent millions of years chasing down other animals to survive. We come from a world of great diversity. Deho began carefully. Humans have learned to work together to build great cities and explore the stars. He did not mention the wars. He did not mention the hunting. He did not mention that humans were predators who had learned to control their hunting instincts through intelligence and choice. As he spoke, he noticed the aliens becoming more and more nervous. Their translator computers were clearly picking up things in the human language that worried them. Some of the aliens began moving toward the exits. Council Prime Veltar's crystals began flashing bright red. "Stop," the alien said. "We must conduct proper tests before this continues. There are procedures that must be followed." Captain Minsu stepped closer to his team. His soldier instincts were telling him that something was very wrong. These aliens were not just nervous. They were afraid, and they were afraid of humans. The testing world looked peaceful from space. Green forests covered most of the land, with blue rivers running between gentle hills. Dr. Hyojin watched through the ship's window as they flew down to the surface. It looked like the perfect place for the Council's tests. "The planet is called Kepler 442b, Captain Minsu read from his computer screen. "The Council says they use it to test new species before they can join the galactic community." Deho was still thinking about what had happened on the space station. The way all those aliens had looked at humans with fear in their eyes. The way they had rushed to end the meeting and send the human team to this testing world as quickly as possible. "How many species have been tested here?" he asked. Dr. Sojin checked her files. "The Council records show 847 different species have come here for testing over the past 3,000 years. "And how many passed the tests?" Sojin was quiet for a long moment. "All of them. Every single species that came here became part of the Council." Captain Minsu looked up from his controls. "That seems too good to be true. What happened to the species that failed?" "The records do not say. They just call them extinct." Their ship landed near a large building made of the same crystal material as the space station. The building looked very old, like it had been there for thousands of years. There were no Council members waiting to meet them, just computer voices that spoke through hidden speakers. "Welcome to the testing facility," the computer said. "Please enter the main building to begin your evaluation." Engineer Wu Sung was the first to notice something strange as they walked toward the building. He was a young man who was very good at understanding how machines worked. He had been studying the alien technology since they arrived. "Look at the ground around the building," he said quietly. "The grass is different colors in some places, like something very hot burned the earth there long ago." Dr. Hyojin knelt down and touched the strange grass. It felt normal, but the soil underneath was hard and black like glass. "This looks like what happens when very powerful energy weapons hit the ground." Inside the building, they found rooms full of strange machines and computer screens. Everything was clean and working perfectly, but it felt empty, like no one had been there for a very long time. The computer voice spoke again. "Your first test will begin now. Please enter the maze chamber and reach the exit without triggering the security systems." They walked into a large room filled with walls that created a maze. The walls were tall and made of metal that they could not see through. Red lights blinked on the walls, and they could hear machines moving somewhere above them. "This seems simple enough," Deho said. "We just need to find our way through without making the security systems angry." But as they started walking through the maze, Dr. Hyojin was studying the walls and the red lights. She had spent years learning about how different animals behaved, and something about this test felt wrong. "These security systems are not designed to test intelligence," she said. "They are designed to test how well you can hide and run away." Captain Minsu stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "Look at the sensors on the walls. They are watching for aggressive behavior, quick movements, anything that looks like hunting. This test is designed for prey animals, not for species that might be predators." As they continued through the maze, more strange things became clear. The paths were designed for creatures that would naturally stay away from anything that looked dangerous. The correct route required them to avoid anything that looked like it might be a hiding spot for a hunter. Dr. Hai-Jin found a computer terminal built into one of the walls. She was able to connect her computer to it and start reading the files stored in the system. What she found made her blood turn cold. "Everyone needs to see this," she called to the others. On her computer screen were records of every species that had ever been tested on this planet. But these were not the same records the Council had shown them. These files told a very different story. Species 23, the Kethran hunters. Status: eliminated due to predatory behavior. Species 156, the Vorthak pack hunters. Status: eliminated due to coordinated hunting instincts. Species 433, the Drokan carnivores. Status: eliminated due to aggressive expansion patterns. The list went on and on, hundreds of species that had been brought to this world for testing, and every single one that showed any signs of being hunters had been marked as eliminated. "They lied to us," Daeho said quietly. "The Council has not been accepting all species into their community. They have been killing every species that hunts for food." Wusung was reading more files on the computer. "It gets worse. Look at this report about human behavior during the first meeting." The file was labeled Species 848, Soel 3 humans. Initial assessment. It read, "Subjects show clear signs of predatory evolution. Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Advanced strategic thinking. Pack coordination behaviors. Highly aggressive body language despite attempts at peaceful presentation. Recommend immediate elimination protocols." Captain Minsu felt his soldier training take over. "How long do we have before they activate these elimination protocols?" Before anyone could answer, the red lights in the maze began flashing faster. The computer voice spoke again, but this time it sounded different. Less friendly. "Test subjects have accessed restricted information. Security protocols now active. Elimination sequence beginning in 60 seconds. The walls of the maze began to move, closing off the path they had taken to get into the center. New openings appeared, but these led toward rooms that glowed with dangerous red light. "They are not testing us anymore," Dr. Hai-Jin said. "They are trying to kill us." Heavy metal doors slammed shut behind them, cutting off their escape route. The maze was becoming a trap, and somewhere above them they could hear the sound of weapons powering up. "The peaceful Galactic Council," Daeho said with bitter understanding. "They have kept peace by murdering every predator species they have ever met." Captain Minsu looked around at his team. They were scientists and diplomats, not soldiers, but they were also humans. And humans had not survived on Earth for thousands of years by giving up when things got dangerous. "Then we had better show them why humans are the ultimate predators," he said. "We are getting off this planet alive, and we are going to warn Earth about what is really happening out here." The elimination sequence timer hit 0, and the real test began. The first energy blast hit the wall right where Daeho had been standing a second before. Captain Minsu had tackled him to the ground just in time. Red beams of light swept through the maze, looking for the human team like deadly searchlights. "Stay low and keep moving," Minsu shouted over the sound of weapons firing. "They are trying to corner us." Dr. Hai-Jin crawled along the floor behind a metal wall, her computer still connected to the alien system. "I can see their attack pattern on the security screens. The weapons are automated, but they are programmed to herd prey animals toward the center of the maze." "We are not prey animals," said Engineer Wusung, as he pulled apart a control panel on the wall. "Maybe we can use that against them." Instead of running toward the exit like the weapons expected them to do, Captain Minsu led the team deeper into the maze. His military training told him that sometimes the best way to escape a trap is to attack the person who set it. "The control room has to be somewhere in this building," he said. "If we can reach it, we can turn off these weapons." Dr. Sojin was studying the walls as they moved. "Look at the scorch marks on the metal. These weapons have been used many times before. Hundreds of times. All those species that were eliminated died right here in this maze." The thought made them all move faster. They were walking through a graveyard of intelligent species, all killed because they had evolved to be hunters instead of prey. Wusung found what he was looking for in the next room, a maintenance shaft that led up toward the ceiling. "The power cables for the weapons run through here. If I can follow them, they will lead me to the control room." "Too dangerous," Minsu said. "We stick together." "Captain, with respect, you are thinking like a soldier," Wusung replied. But I am an engineer. This is what I do. Give me 10 minutes. Before Minsu could stop him, Woo-sung climbed into the shaft and disappeared. The sound of his movement echoed through the metal tubes above them. While they waited, Dr. Haijin made another terrible discovery in the computer files. The Council has detailed records of every predator species they have eliminated. They study how each species fights, how they think, what weapons they use. They have been getting better at killing hunters for 3,000 years. How many species? Daeho asked. Over 400 different predator species, all extinct now. The number was too big to understand. 400 different worlds where intelligent hunters had evolved, reached the stars, and been murdered by the Council for the crime of being born as predators. What about survivors? Captain Minsu asked. Did any of them escape? Heejin scrolled through more files. Some did. The records show that small groups from maybe 50 species managed to get away when their worlds were attacked. But the Council hunts them constantly. They can never settle down anywhere or build new civilizations. A loud crash came from above them, followed by the sound of Woo-sung cursing in Korean. Then all the lights in the maze went out. Did he turn off the power? So-jin asked. Some of it, came Woo-sung's voice through their radio. The weapons are down, but the building is going into emergency lockdown. We have maybe 5 minutes before backup systems come online. They ran through the dark maze toward the exit, using the lights on their computers to see the way. But when they reached the door they had entered through, it would not open. The whole building is sealed, Woo-sung reported from somewhere above them. But I found something interesting in the control room. This is not just a testing facility. It is also a communication center. The Council has been sending messages to their fleets. What kind of messages? Minsu demanded. Orders to prepare for a sterilization mission to Earth. They are not just planning to kill us. They want to destroy our entire planet. The words hit them like physical blows. Earth. 7 billion people who had no idea that aliens existed, much less that those aliens were planning to kill them all. How long do we have? Daeho asked. The fleet will reach Earth in 6 days. Dr. Haijin was looking at her computer screen with new understanding. That is why they brought us here instead of just killing us on the space station. They needed time to get their ships into position around our solar system. The backup power came online and the weapons started firing again. But now the humans were ready for them. Captain Minsu led his team through the maze using tactics that the weapons were not programmed to handle. Instead of running away from the energy beams, they used them to break down walls and create new paths. The weapons are designed to hunt prey animals, Minsu explained as they moved. Prey animals run in predictable patterns. But predators are different. We adapt. They reached a room full of communication equipment just as Woo-sung dropped down from the ceiling. He had found something that changed everything. The survivor species I told you about, he said, holding up a data storage device. They are not just hiding from the Council. They have been preparing for war. The device contained coordinates for dozens of secret bases hidden throughout the galaxy. Places where the escaped predator species had been building weapons and ships, waiting for the right moment to strike back at the Council. There are Kethran hunters still alive out there, Woo-sung continued, and Vorthak pack mines and hundreds of other species that were supposed to be extinct. They have been watching the Council for generations, learning their weaknesses. Dr. So-jin smiled for the first time since they had landed on the planet. They have been waiting for allies. Allies with the resources to fight back, Daeho added. Allies like humans. Captain Minsu was already making plans. We need to get off this planet and contact these survivors. If we can coordinate our attack with theirs, we might be able to stop the Council fleet before it reaches Earth. The building shook as more powerful weapons came online. The Council was done playing games. They were bringing out the equipment they used to sterilize entire planets. How do we get out of here? So-jin asked. Minsu looked up at the hole in the ceiling where Woo-sung had come down. The same way our species has always survived. We do not run away from the hunt, we become the hunters. The escape from the planet was harder than any of them had expected. Council ships appeared in the sky above them like angry metal birds, firing energy weapons that turned the forest into burning wasteland. Captain Minsu pushed their ship to its limits, dodging between the attacks while Dr. Haijin worked to decode the coordinates they had stolen. The nearest survivor base is 3 days away, she called out over the sound of alarms. But we have to get past the Council patrol ships first. Through the cockpit window they could see more ships coming. Not the small patrol vessels that had been chasing them, but massive battle cruisers with enough firepower to destroy entire cities. The Council was not taking any chances with humanity escaping. They are hurting us, Captain Minsu realized. Look at their formation. They want us to fly toward the edge of the solar system. Engineer Wusung was monitoring the enemy communications. I am picking up their radio signals. They are not trying to destroy us immediately. They want to follow us to see where we go. The terrible logic became clear to Daeho. They want us to lead them to the other survivors. If they can find all the hidden bases at once, they can destroy them all together. Dr. Sojin looked at the star maps on her screen. We cannot go directly to the survivor base. But we cannot stay here either. The Council fleet heading for Earth will arrive in 5 days. Captain Minsu made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days before. Instead of running toward the edge of the system where the Council expected him to go, he turned the ship toward the inner planets where Council space was heavily defended. What are you doing? Daeho asked. Something no prey animal would ever do, Minsu replied. We are going to attack them. The Council ships were confused by this move. Their computers had been programmed based on the behavior of hundreds of prey species that had tried to escape from this system. All of them had fled toward empty space where they thought they could hide. None had ever flown directly toward the Council's strongest defenses. Dr. Hye-jin used this confusion to send a coded message to the survivor base using the stolen Council communication equipment. The message was simple. Humanity is ready to join the fight. Send coordinates for emergency meeting. The response came back within minutes, but it was not what they expected. Instead of coordinates, they received a warning. Council has listening posts everywhere. Cannot risk open communication. Follow the Wanderer's path to the Forgotten Realm. What does that mean? Wusung asked. Dr. Sojin was studying the message on her computer. It sounds like some kind of code. Maybe directions that only other predator species would understand. They spent hours trying to decode the message while dodging Council patrols. The Wanderer's path could mean anything. The Forgotten Realm was equally mysterious. But slowly, Dr. Hye-jin began to understand. It is not about places, she said suddenly. It is about behavior. The Wanderer's path means we have to act like nomadic hunters, never staying in one place long enough to be tracked. The Forgotten Realm means we go to places the Council has written off as empty or unimportant. Captain Minsu nodded. Dead space. Places where there are no valuable planets or resources. The Council would never think to look there because prey species always go where there is food and safety. They changed course again, heading for a region of space that Council charts marked as stellar graveyard, no strategic value. It was an area filled with old stars that had burned out millions of years ago, leaving behind only dark worlds that no one wanted. The journey took 2 days. During that time, they learned more about their new allies from the data Wusung had stolen. The Ketharan were originally from a world of eternal darkness, where they had evolved to hunt by sound and smell instead of sight. The Vorthak were pack hunters who could share thoughts between members of their group, making them incredibly effective at coordinated attacks. Each species had their own special abilities that had helped some of them survive the Council's extermination campaigns. But they all shared one thing. They had learned to think like predators instead of prey. The Council has made one huge mistake, Dr. Hye-jin realized as she read through the files. They have been treating predator species like they were just more dangerous versions of prey animals. But we do not think like prey. We think like hunters. When they reached the stellar graveyard, their sensors detected something impossible. Energy readings that showed active technology in a region that was supposed to be completely dead. As they got closer, they saw the truth. Hidden inside the hollow shell of a burned-out planet was a massive space station. But this station was unlike anything the Council had built. It was dark and angular, designed for stealth and warfare instead of peaceful cooperation. "This is Hunter Base 7, came a voice over their radio. The voice was translated by their computer, but they could hear the underlying growl of a natural predator. "Identify yourselves." "This is the human ship Endeavor," Captain Minsu replied. "We are the species from Earth. We have intelligence about Council plans to attack our world." There was a long silence. "Then humans. We have heard about you. The Council is very afraid of your kind. Come aboard. The Coalition of the Forgotten wants to meet the species that made the Council panic." As their ship was guided into the hidden station, they could see other vessels docked around them, ships that looked nothing like the peaceful Council vessels they had seen before. These were warships built by species that understood that sometimes violence was the only answer to a threat. Commander Jin-A met them at the docking bay. She was a human who had been born on one of Earth's space colonies and had joined the military at age 16, but she was not part of their original team. "How did you get here?" Taeho asked in surprise. "I have been here for 6 months," she replied. "Earth has known about the Council longer than you think. We sent scout ships to investigate after we received their first message. When we learned what they really were, we started preparing." She led them through the station corridors that were filled with creatures that looked like the stuff of nightmares. But these were not monsters. They were survivors, refugees from worlds that had been destroyed by the Council, and they were all working together with a single purpose. "Welcome to the war that has been going on for 3,000 years, Jin-A said. "The war between hunters and those who would destroy us for being what we are. How many of you are there?" Captain Minsu asked. "Not enough," she replied. "But with humanity's help, maybe we finally have a chance to win." The war room of Hunter Base 7 was unlike anything the human team had ever seen. Dozens of different predator species sat around a massive table, their various forms creating a collection of nightmares and legends. But as Dr. So-Jin watched them work together, she realized these creatures were not monsters. They were generals planning the most important battle in galactic history. Commander Jin-A stood at the head of the table, pointing to a holographic map of Council space. "The Council fleet will reach Earth in 3 days. But our scouts have discovered something important. This is not just an attack on humanity. The Council is moving all of their forces at once." A creature that looked like a massive wolf with 6 legs and metal claws spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Explain what this means, human." "They are putting everything they have into this one attack," Jin-A replied. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. They want to make sure humanity is completely destroyed so other predator species will never again dare to challenge them." Dr. He-Jin studied the map carefully. "That means their homeworlds are less defended than they have ever been." "Exactly," said a floating creature that looked like a jellyfish made of dark energy. This was Void Singer, one of the last survivors of the Kethran hunters. "If we attack their central command while their fleets are at Earth, we can end their ability to coordinate future genocide campaigns." Captain Minsu looked at the numbers on the display. "How many ships do we have compared to them?" 1/10 of their total force, Jin-A answered honestly. "But we have advantages they do not expect." The advantages became clear as the coalition leaders explained their plan. For 3,000 years, the survivor species had been studying Council technology and tactics. They knew exactly how Council ships were built, how their weapons worked, and most importantly, how their crews thought. "Council species cannot handle unexpected situations," explained Razormind, a Vorthak pack leader whose thoughts were shared with 12 other members of his hunting group. "Their entire military is designed around overwhelming prey animals who try to run away. They have never had to fight against coordinated predator attacks." Engineer Wusong was amazed by the technology the survivors had developed. "You have built ships that can become invisible to Council sensors?" "Better than invisible," Void Singer replied. "We have learned to make our ships look like space debris or dead asteroids. Council crews see what they expect to see." The plan that emerged was bold beyond anything humans had ever attempted. While the Council fleet was attacking Earth, the Coalition would strike at 7 different Council command centers simultaneously. Each attack would be led by a different predator species using their unique evolutionary advantages. The Kethran would use their natural stealth abilities to infiltrate Council Prime's personal command ship. The Vorthak pack mines would coordinate precision strikes against communication networks. Other species would handle different targets, each one perfectly suited for their assigned mission. "What about humans?" Taeho asked. "What is our role in this plan?" Commander Jin-A smiled. "Humans will do what they do best. You will adapt." She explained that humanity's greatest strength was not any single ability, but their capacity to think like both predator and prey at the same time. Humans could understand how Council species thought because humans had evolved alongside both hunters and prey animals on Earth. "You will be our diplomatic team," Jin-A continued. "When we capture the Council leadership, we need someone who can communicate with them without triggering their panic responses." Dr. So-Jin understood immediately. Council species are too terrified of predators to think clearly when they are being hunted. But if humans approach them the right way, We might be able to make them listen. The next 2 days were spent in intensive preparation. The coalition had been planning this moment for generations, but they had never expected to have human allies. Humans brought new ideas and perspectives that changed many of their strategies. Captain Minsu worked with the other military commanders to refine the attack plans. His experience fighting human enemies gave him insights into how intelligent opponents might respond to their tactics. Dr. He Jin studied council psychology with Voidsinger, learning how to communicate with prey species without making them feel threatened. It was like learning to speak an entirely different emotional language. Wu Sung helped upgrade the coalition's communication systems so all the different species could coordinate their attacks in real time. The diversity of the coalition was both their greatest strength and their biggest challenge. On the morning of the attack, Daeho stood in the command center watching as dozens of invisible ships moved toward their targets. The coalition fleet was spread across 3 star systems, but they were all moving with perfect coordination. Council Prime Veltar is aboard the command ship approaching Earth, Voidsinger reported through the communication system. The Kethran strike team is in position. Vorthak Pack mines have identified all communication relay stations, came another report. Ready to sever council coordination networks. One by one, the other teams reported their readiness. For the first time in 3,000 years, predator species were working together as a unified force. Begin the hunt, Commander Jin A ordered. The attacks began simultaneously across council space. To the council, it must have seemed like their worst nightmare coming true. Predator species that were supposed to be extinct were appearing everywhere at once, using tactics and technology that council defenses could not handle. The Kethran strike team boarded council Prime's ship while it was still approaching Earth. The Vorthak shut down communication networks across 17 different star systems. Other teams struck at weapon manufacturing centers, supply depots, and administrative headquarters. But the most important part of the plan was happening aboard Council Prime's command ship. The human diplomatic team, led by Daeho, was preparing to do something that had never been attempted before in galactic history. They were going to try to negotiate with a prey species that was being actively hunted by predators. A Council Prime Veltar. Daeho spoke into the communication system as Kethran hunters secured the bridge. "We need to talk." The response was exactly what Dr. Sojin had predicted. Pure terror. "Predators," came the crystal being's voice, distorted by fear. "You have come to devour us all." "No," Daeho replied calmly. "We have come to offer you something your species has never had before. A choice." Council Prime Veltar stood in the center of the command bridge, surrounded by predator species that his people had spent 3,000 years trying to destroy. The crystal being's light flickered between red and white, showing the pure terror that filled his mind. Daeho stepped forward slowly, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. Everything Dr. Sojin had taught him about communicating with prey species was being put to the ultimate test. "Council Prime, we are not here to harm you," Daeho said in the gentlest voice he could manage. "We are here to offer you something your species has never considered. Peace between hunters and prey." Veltar's crystals flashed bright red. "Impossible. Predators exist only to devour. It is the way of nature. We have seen it on 10,000 worlds. You have seen what happens when predators have no intelligence," Dr. Sojin said, joining Daeho in the center of the bridge. "But we are not mindless beasts. We can choose when to hunt and when to protect." Through the ship's communication system, they could hear reports from across the galaxy. The coalition attacks had been more successful than anyone had dared to hope. Council military bases were surrendering rather than fighting. Most council species were so terrified of organized predator attacks that they could not even think clearly enough to mount proper defenses. But Commander Jin A had more important news. The council fleet at Earth has stopped their attack. They received our message about capturing their leadership and they are waiting for orders. Captain Minsu smiled. 7 billion humans are safe because we proved that predators can work together instead of fighting each other. Veltar was trying to understand what he was hearing. "Your species could destroy our fleets easily now. Why do you not simply take what you want?" "Because that is not what we want," Daeho explained. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it without being murdered for what we are." Dr. He Jin activated a holographic display that showed images from Earth. Cities full of humans living and working together, families raising children, scientists exploring the universe. Artists creating beautiful things. Look at our world, she said to Veltar. Do you see a planet of mindless killers? Or do you see people who have learned to use their predator instincts to build instead of destroy? The Council Prime stared at the images for a long time. His people had never seen predator species in their natural state. They had only encountered them during first contact situations, when the predators were already being threatened or attacked. On our worlds, we have prey animals too, Dr. Sojin continued. Rabbits, deer, fish. But we also protect them. We have learned that true strength comes from knowing when not to use your power. Voidsinger materialized beside them, the Kethrin hunter's dark form somehow managing to look non-threatening. For 3,000 years your people have killed our children before they could grow up. You have destroyed our worlds and scattered our families. But today, when we finally have the power to do the same to you, we choose differently. Veltar's crystals began to change color, shifting from red to a pale blue. You are offering to spare us? We are offering to share the galaxy, Deho said. Predator species and prey species, each with our own territories, working together when we choose to. Engineer Wusung had been monitoring Council communications across the galaxy. Council Prime, your military commanders are asking for orders. The Coalition has captured 17 command centers, but we have not harmed any of your people. They are waiting to see what you decide. The negotiation that followed lasted for 6 hours. Council Prime Veltar called emergency sessions with representatives from all the major council species. For the first time in their history, they had to consider the possibility of coexisting with predators. Instead of simply eliminating them, Dr. Hai Jin worked with Voidsinger and the other coalition leaders to design the framework for what would become known as the Galactic Accords. The agreement was simple in concept but revolutionary in practice. Predator species would be given their own regions of space where they could develop their civilizations without council interference. In exchange, they would accept monitoring systems to ensure they did not expand beyond agreed boundaries without diplomatic approval. But the most important part of the accords was the establishment of joint projects. Predator species were naturally good at rapid problem-solving, innovation, and crisis response. Prey species excelled at long-term planning, resource management, and peaceful cooperation. Your people are very good at building sustainable civilizations, Captain Minsu told Veltar. Our people are very good at protecting those civilizations when they are threatened. You would fight to defend us? Veltar asked in amazement. If you were attacked by external threats, yes, Deho replied. That is what predators do when they are part of a pack. We protect our allies. The final signing of the Galactic Accords took place in neutral space, with both predator and prey species maintaining fleets nearby, but agreeing to keep their weapons powered down. It was the first time in galactic history that such different types of species had attempted diplomatic coexistence. Council Prime. Veltar's words at the signing ceremony would be remembered for generations. We spent 3,000 years believing that safety required the elimination of difference. Perhaps true security lies in understanding how our differences can make us all stronger. 5 years later, Dr. Sojin stood on the observation deck of the Joint Research Station orbiting Kepler 442b. The same planet where humanity had almost been eliminated, now hosted the galaxy's first mixed predator and prey colony. Below them, human children played alongside young council species in parks designed by both civilizations working together. Human engineers and council planners were building cities that neither species could have imagined alone. Do you think it will last? Asked Deho, who now served as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. Sojin watched a group of human teenagers teaching council youth how to play soccer, while the council youth taught the humans how to sing in harmonies that their species had perfected over millennia. Humans proved they were the ultimate predators, she said, not because we could destroy everything, but because we were smart enough to choose what was worth protecting. The day mankind proved they reigned as the ultimate predator became the day they chose to use that power to create something better than anyone had thought possible. The galaxy would never be the same. 10 years had passed since the signing of the Galactic Accords, and the galaxy was discovering that peace between predators and prey brought challenges no one had expected. Dr. Yunseo, daughter of the late Dr. Sojin, stood in the emergency council chamber as alarms echoed through the joint space station. The problem had come from outside the galaxy entirely. Long-range sensors had detected something approaching from the dark space between galaxies. Something massive, artificial, and completely unknown. The object is larger than our biggest space stations, reported Captain Taemin, son of the original Captain Min-Soo. But it is not sending any signals we can understand. Council Prime Veltar, now much older but still serving as leader of the Prey Species Alliance, studied the sensor readings with concern. His crystals flickered between blue and yellow, showing deep worry. In 3,000 years of galactic history, we have never encountered anything from outside our galaxy, he said. This could change everything we know about the universe. Commander Boram, who had taken over from Jin'e as head of human military operations, was thinking like a soldier. If this object is hostile, we need to know what we are facing. Our current defenses were designed for conflicts between species from this galaxy. The mysterious object had appeared at the edge of galactic space and was moving steadily toward the core worlds. It would reach the outer territories in 6 months. But more disturbing than its approach was what happened to any ship that got too close to it. 3 Council exploration vessels have gone missing, reported Voidsinger, the ancient Kethran hunter who now served as intelligence coordinator for the Predator Alliance. They approached the object and simply vanished. No distress signals, no debris, nothing. Dr. Yoon Seo had been studying the limited data they had collected about the object. Her mother had taught her to look for patterns that others might miss, and she was seeing something that worried her deeply. The object is not just moving through space, she announced to the Council. It is consuming it. Look at these readings. Wherever it passes, the background energy of space itself changes. Engineer Han Wool, grandson of the original Wusung, had been analyzing the object's construction through long-range scans. The materials it is made from do not exist in our galaxy. The atomic structure is completely different from anything we have ever seen. The revelation sent shockwaves through both the Predator and Prey alliances. They were facing something that might not even be from their universe, let alone their galaxy. All their careful peace treaties and territorial agreements meant nothing if this object destroyed everything in its path. We need to send a joint mission, suggested Daeho, now in his 70s but still serving as chief diplomat. Predator and Prey species working together, using all our combined knowledge and abilities. But Veltar was hesitant. What if this object is itself a predator? Something that consumes entire galaxies. Our Prey species have no experience dealing with threats of this magnitude. Then it is good that you have allies who do, replied Stormclaw, a young Vorthak pack leader whose generation had grown up after the Accords. Predators evolve to face unknown dangers. That is what we do best. The joint mission that was assembled represented the best of both civilizations. Dr. Yoon Seo led the scientific team, combining Council research methods with Predator innovation. Captain Taemin commanded the military escort, using ships that had been designed jointly by both alliances. Most importantly, the mission included new species that had been discovered since the Accords. The Harmony Singers were prey species that had evolved the ability to communicate through pure mathematics. The Iron Hunters were predators who had learned to reshape matter at the molecular level. As the joint fleet approached the mysterious object, they began to understand the true scale of what they were facing. The object was not a ship or a space station. It was an entire artificial world, larger than most planets, covered in structures that seemed to grow and change as they watched. The object is alive, Dr. Yoon Seo reported with amazement. Not biological life as we understand it, but some form of artificial consciousness that spans the entire structure. Captain Taemin was more concerned with the defensive implications. If it is alive and intelligent, we might be able to communicate with it. But if it is hostile, our combined fleets would not be enough to stop something that size. The first attempt at communication came from the Harmony Singers, whose mathematical language was universal enough that any intelligent being should be able to understand it. The response they received changed everything. The entity is not from outside our universe, the lead Harmony Singer announced. It is from the future of our universe. From a time billions of years from now when all the stars have died and space itself is cooling toward absolute zero. The revelation was staggering. The object was not an invader but a refugee. It had traveled backward through time itself to escape the death of the universe, seeking a period when galaxies were still young and full of life. It does not want to destroy us, Dr. Yoon Seo realized. It wants to learn from us. to understand how life and consciousness developed in the early universe so it can prevent the eventual death of everything. But the entity's presence was still dangerous. Its advanced technology was disrupting the fabric of space around it, creating gravitational anomalies that could tear apart entire star systems. The entity did not even realize it was causing damage because its scale of existence was so different from biological life. "We need to help it," Deho said simply. "This entity represents the future of all consciousness in the universe. If we cannot find a way to coexist with it, then everything we have built will eventually die anyway." The solution required the combined efforts of every species in the galaxy. Prey species provided the long-term planning and resource management needed for such a massive project. Predator species contributed the rapid innovation and problem-solving abilities required to develop entirely new technologies. Working together, they created a pocket dimension where the entity could exist without disrupting normal space. In exchange, the entity shared knowledge from the far future that would help all galactic civilizations develop sustainable technologies that could survive until the end of time itself. Today we proved something. Even more important than our strength as predators, Captain Taman said as they watched the entity safely transition into its new dimensional home. "We proved that intelligence and cooperation can overcome even the largest challenges the universe can create." The day that had started with fear of destruction ended with hope for eternal survival. The galaxy had not just survived its first contact with the far future, but had gained a guardian that would help protect all consciousness from the eventual heat death of the universe. Humanity had once again proven their nature as the ultimate predator, not by conquering their greatest challenge but by turning it into their greatest ally.